Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, the playoff odds are out. Where do the Lakers stand in the Western Conference? That's next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always free. It's never behind a paywall. Really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us, making us your first listen of every day. Numbers throughout the summer have been great. Some of the strongest on the network, and we appreciate everything that you guys have done to do that, and also to help build up the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel, which is pushing 8,000 subscribers from zero when we started this thing. So we're really excited about where that's going. We are going to dip into the YouTube page today for some comments about Russell Westbrook from earlier in the week. That's something, Andy, that we're going to be doing a ton of throughout the rest of the offseason, especially. Really get involved, leave comments, tweet us at Cam Brothers, and be part of the show. Want to let you know as well that Locked On Lakers today is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the games start. If it seems like we're in a bit of a hurry today, it's because we got to get this thing done. We're taping early on Thursday for Friday. Andy's got a colonoscopy tomorrow and has got to take some laxatives. So no time to waste, Andy.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be waste.
For people who are not aware, the prep for a colonoscopy leaves you basically incapacitated in the toilet, full and refilling of laxatives. To let people a little bit behind the curtain for how this show works. Typically, I do the editing of the show. Brian does the write-up for the show page and stuff like that. I'm telling you right now, once these laxatives kick in, I don't care where I am in the editing stage, show's done. Start processing that thing right then.
We're going live. Here we are.
Does not matter what needs to come out other than what's coming out of me. Like, that's all that's really going to be on my mind.
There seems to be a lot of swearing in the last third of the show. Oh, well. So yeah, that's Andy's Friday for everybody who was curious.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to that. We'll get to the Westbrook comments. Some interesting kind of cross-town sports news involving the Rams that got me thinking about the Lakers as well, that we'll try to get to. But let's start here because we've spent a lot of the week, Andy, talking about where things are with the Lakers, how they can try to improve, how many different ways they could trade Westbrook, what it's going to look like with Pat Beverly and Westbrook playing together.
All the different ways they could trade Russell Westbrook too.
Didn't say it took long. I just said we talked about it.
Well, there's Indiana, there's Utah, there's also Utah and Indiana.
And if you reverse them, it is a very different scenario. And there's the mystery trade that we don't know about. So 3. So it is part of the context, I think, of figuring out where things are going with the Lakers is based around where things are now. And we're starting to get a lot of little indications of what the rest of the world thinks of the Lakers as currently constructed, whether it's odds on playoff appearances from our friends at Bet Online, which we're going to talk about here, or even like 2K ratings, Andy, that came out this week, which are kind of a fun little shorthand about how at least video game people think, good people think your team is. So here's what Bet Online has set up for the Western Conference. The following teams have better odds of making the playoffs than the Lakers. Golden State, minus 2,500. The Clippers, minus 2,200. The Suns, minus 2,000. The Grizzlies, minus 750. The Nuggets, minus 650. The Mavs, minus 600. The T-Wolves, minus 300. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Lakers then are 8th at minus 260, followed very closely by the Pelicans at minus 160. So it's almost a sort of statistical gambling tie between those two teams. First thing, does any of that seem unreasonable to you? Do you think the Lakers should be ahead of the Mavs, ahead of the T-Wolves, or anything like that?
No, I mean, I don't know how big the discrepancies are between, say, the Lakers in there's the seventh spot, correct?
Lakers in eighth, 1, 2, 3,
Eighth.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at minus 260. The Wolves are next at minus 300. The Mavs are minus 600.
Okay, so you're between the Lakers and the Wolves, it's more or less a wash, and then even the gap between the Lakers and the Mavericks isn't massive, even though the Mavericks would be considered more of a favorite. I think it doesn't surprise me. It also just speaks to, I think, the very realistic way of looking at this team, which is if LeBron and Anthony Davis can manage to stay on the court, stay healthy, and Anthony Davis is playing at the height of his powers, somewhere much closer to the bubble version than the last couple of years, where even health issues, unavailability issues aside, he has not always looked like what we think Anthony Davis can be, frankly, needs to be.
Right. Like all-star caliber, but that's not what they're paying for. They're not paying for all-star caliber. They're paying for first-team All-NBA.
Right. If you get those versions of LeBron and AD at the height of their powers and available, the Lakers have a really good foundation. They just do. That is arguably the best 1-2 combo in the league. And even acknowledging the questions about the supporting cast behind them, Russell Westbrook's fit, what Darvin Ham's going to do with this team, LeBron and AD as your foundation gives you a hell of a lot of advantages. So I think where they rank right now is an acknowledgement of what they can be, but also that you don't know if you're going to get those guys on the court these days, or
and it's
the availability, the regularity.
Last year was such a disaster. Honestly, the first thing that jumped out at me, because when you see it written down, I think there's, nobody quite knows, for example, what the Pelicans are going to be this year with Zion back, an up and coming roster, and Ingram, and like that team has potential if Zion stays healthy to be pretty good. Like they could make a decent leap this year. Part of the reason I think they are bet down here is both because people are unsure about Zion, and also too, it's the Pelicans. I mean, were there 9 people on the planet who get excited about putting money down on the Pelicans? I mean, most people don't even know they're there. So, after that, Portland, I think, will be competitive this year, certainly relative to last year, but I don't think will be great. And then Sacramento, kind of the same thing. OKC, Houston, San Antonio, and Utah. I think definitely a little notch below, especially after the Chet injury. If those guys stay healthy, I hate setting the bar here or the floor here. At the very least, I'm feeling very confident about the play-in. Sure. Like I don't know about top 6, but an opportunity to get into the big tournament should be there. But I don't think the Lakers deserve to be any higher than this. And it's not necessarily because I think the team is trash. I think they're fine. Like, if guys stay healthy, if Pat Bev stays healthy, if the stars stay healthy, and Russ fits in sort of, and you got Kendrick Nunn or whatever, I think you can win 40-something games this year. But 40-something games in the Western Conference isn't going to get you necessarily into the top 6 unless it's high 40s. And even then, it might not get you there.
What I think, though, is really interesting about this, because I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but that there's a lot of questions that can also be applied to some of these other teams that I think are rightly ahead of the Lakers. But, the Clippers, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, if those guys stay healthy, that is also a really good foundation to go with arguably the best, roster depth supporting cast in the league. But there is no reason to feel confident that Paul George and especially Kawhi are going to be healthy. That is a true need to see it to believe it. And as much as we saw last year, those guys played their asses off and really commendably got the greatest sum of their parts possible. And, they played in a way that I think was really inspiring. I think Laker fans would have to begrudgingly admit that, considering where they were. They're going to be struggling to do that the whole year. And that was a team that ultimately didn't end up making the playoffs.
Well, I mean, they won 42 games. Let's talk about that, because I think the direction some of these teams are going, Denver is, I think, another team you could kind of put in that if bucket, because
Dallas, there is
issue.
a lot on Luka's shoulders
For sure
this year.
But let's talk about the direction that some of these teams are going next, because that also influences where you put the Lakers and why I feel like it is such an uphill climb, even if they make one of these trades. Even if they get the best deal, which I think is the Turner Hield deal, the challenge in the West is still really strong. So we'll do that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. BetOnline for odds, lines, games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, which is kicking off officially tonight. By the time you hear this, you will know who won between the Rams and the Bills. NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. There are new odds up over with our friends at BetOnline for the 2023 NBA Championship. Boston, your current clubhouse leader at five. Look, man, I don't make these lines. I just do. They are considered 5.5 to 1 favorites right now, followed by Golden State at 7 to 1, the Bucks at 7 to 1, Brooklyn at 7.5 to 1, the Clippers at 7.5 to 1, Phoenix 11 to 1, and then the Lakers following. I thought I was there. It turns out got to go a little lower. Miami, Philly at 18 to 1. Yeah. Lakers now tied with Denver and just Denver at 20 to 1. So they've actually dropped since the last time we've gone through their odds.
I could choose two teams to put money on at 20 to 1. It ain't going to be the Lakers in that.
Well, I wonder if that's maybe Vegas really starting to sense, as we have warned our listeners all season long, the Lakers may, at minimum, start with Russell Westbrook on this team. BetOnline continues to be
Denver's a good bet. I would do that.
Continues to be the top online resource for all your sporting wagering information, from live in-game betting, sports scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. So head to BetOnline today. Use your mobile device. Learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Okay, keeping things moving before Andy gets things moving.
I unfortunately see what you did there.
I did, yeah. Pretty good, I think. I worked on that during the break. To your point, Andy, every team's got something.
This is going to be me all day today. Head down, just hating life like James Worthy.
Keeping in mind that what you're pointing out is correct. That every team has that thing that is going to hurt them. A Luka injury. As much as I think Dallas has a really well constructed roster of supporting guys and the pieces fit nicely together and all that stuff. If Luka gets hurt for 60 games, they're kind of cooked.
Forget gets hurt. If Luka gets tired, which is always an issue for Luka with conditioning and stuff like that, there is a lot on his shoulders, offensively,
there's no
playmaking.
Yeah, no question.
He's carrying a lot.
He is. If you look through, the Clippers have the potential injuries. They won 42 games. Kawhi didn't play. Paul George was hurt, more than half the year. But you go through the West, and this is what the challenge is for the Lakers, and why the choices that they have to make aren't easy. While I think they would be willing in the end, and will be willing in the end, to add that second pick to an Indiana deal. The Pacers, there's no reason for the Lakers to commit to anything completely yet. There's no reason, by the way, for the Pacers to commit to this deal unless they're sure it's not going to be the best thing they could do for Miles Turner. Golden State obviously won a title last year. Didn't get worse this offseason, unless you think losing Otto Porter Jr. is that big a deal. I don't think they got worse.
Gary Payton.
Yeah. But, they should have
Juan Toscano Anderson.
Right. But they, have some young improvement. They brought in DiVincenzo. I don't think they got worse.
James Wiseman might actually step on the court this
year.
He
might play. Right.
Yeah.
It's a thing. The Clippers, it's going to be hard for them to get less health than they got last year from their stars. The Suns didn't get any worse. The Grizzlies, I think, should be better this year, just natural improvement. And,
they got to spend some time without Jaren Jackson Jr. So that's
a little bit, yeah.
That's time that could make the beginning of the season difficult for them.
But assuming he's available and whatever, they should be very good.
Yeah,
they're the second best team in the conference last year. So Denver played without Jamal Murray last year and Michael Porter Jr. for most of the season and still won 48 games. They should be better.
They picked up KCP. They picked up Bruce Brown. They should be good.
The Timberwolves, obviously, at least on paper, we don't know what it's going to look like, but the Timberwolves obviously got significantly better in the offseason. And the Pelicans, just by getting Zion back, improve pretty significantly this offseason. So the fact that I think the Lakers they're a little better. I mean, the as problematic from a kind of big picture standpoint in terms of operations as the THT for Beverly thing kind of is for what it represents. The Lakers are better for having made that trade.
Absolutely.
I think they're better set up with Kendrick Nunn coming back and a younger group of people around them to be better than they were last year.
Agreed.
But the
whether it's good enough or not doesn't
that's
change
what I was
the
about
fact.
to ask.
I think they're better heading into this season.
I don't even think that even relative to other teams in the conference, when you start to say like static last year, look at where things were, the Lakers could jump up 5 or 6 games, or more than that if everybody's healthy. They're somewhere in the mid 40s, or low 40s, mid 40s last year, and they bump up. I actually think it'd be harder to be better this year than last year in terms of cracking that top 6, because nobody's worse except Utah. But swap out the Wolves, who were in the play-in last year. The West, particularly the top 8 in the West, and I'll include the Lakers in that, is really effing strong. Like it just is.
Yeah. I mean, again, it gets back to why that foundation with LeBron and Anthony Davis is so important. It's not even just that they're so good and the team is so clearly built around them. And, the gap between AD and whoever you consider the third best player on this team, this version of Russell Westbrook, Kendrick Nunn, if he comes back healthy, whoever, the gap between AD and whoever that is more significant than a lot of other teams around the league with their second best player and their third best player. But again, that being said, you could argue that there is no team in the league that has the same advantage from their first and second best players, not just with their talents, but the way their talents complement each other, as LeBron
Certainly
and
not
AD.
the West. I think the only competition there is the Kawhi PG combo. Maybe if you really believe in Jamal Murray, you could say Jokic and Murray, or
Maybe.
I guess Michael Porter Jr. But I don't think Jamal Murray, as much as I think Jokic is.
Jamal Murray's not better than Anthony Davis.
He's not better than Anthony Davis, right?
Right.
I mean,
and even
if you think LeBron, the Jokic is better than LeBron, Jamal Murray's not better than Anthony Davis.
No, the gap
shouldn't be at the very least.
No, if he is, there's a lot the Lakers need to really do some serious soul searching about. But like even Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who are both really, really great players, I've been on the record a lot as saying I think Paul George gets trashed way more than he deserves. He is a really, really good player. There's still some degree of redundancy between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that is not there for LeBron and AD, because LeBron can be whatever the hell you want. And Anthony Davis is a really, really versatile big man. Like there is no 1-2 combination, I think, in the league that combines talent and the ability to complement each other in the widest variety of ways than LeBron and Anthony Davis. There is just, though, unfortunately, a lot of question marks about what you're going to get from those two over the course of an entire year.
Right. And it's funny, like the 2K ratings kind of speak to this, and neither one of us are gamers.
No.
And so like, I don't play 2K. I don't,
I should have bought a system just for today.
Right.
I got time to learn these games.
But when that stuff came out this week, and NBA players take these rankings incredibly seriously. It's some of my favorite stuff. Like when guys get really salty about their 2K ratings.
Kevin Durant is angry about a 96 overall rating.
Pretty much everybody. Like everybody got a 90. Like LeBron's a 96. Steph is a 96.
Well, the top 10 or top 10-ish, I should say. Giannis has a 97, followed by LeBron with a 96, the best rating on the Lakers, and that is. It is really amazing when you think about the idea that he's entering his 20th season with like 1 billion miles on the odometer, and tied for the second highest rating in the league. Like,
right. And even if you think it's like, oh, that's BS, he should be a 93. Like, okay,
right. Just whatever stock you put into any of this stuff, the idea that it makes sense that LeBron would be rated this high at all is astonishing. So it's LeBron, Steph, Durant, Jokic, Embiid with 96s. Slightly behind them is Luka with a 95. Kawhi's got a 94. Ja Morant, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler with 93s. And I believe Devin Booker has a 91, Anthony Davis with a 90.
So, you look at it, what sticks out to the Lakers, both when you look at their roster on paper compared to the rest of the West, even when you use 2K as a shorthand, it's like for the Lakers to really make noise and to really surprise people. Obviously, we've talked ad nauseum about what Anthony Davis has. I think we all know what LeBron's going to do if he's healthy. If Davis needs to elevate and be that consistent first team NBA, all NBA guy. And then it's a matter of like, how many 80-point guys can the Lakers drum up? How many of their 75s can become 81s? Because that's really what distinguishes the Lakers roster from the rest of the West. Is it's not just it's not so much the stars at the top as it is the middle class and the guys being, because I think the third highest rated guy on the Lakers right now is Beverly at 79. And like none is Beverly and Westbrook have the same rating.
No, they don't. No, they do not.
Oh, no, Beverly's a point higher, right?
Yes. Patrick Beverly has a 79, followed by Russ at a 78, which I really hope was Ronnie 2K actively just trolling the two of them, like trying.
Like, did he know? Like, do you think they subtly changed that? Like after the trade?
Again,
I hope so.
I hope so. Like, if I'm going to be so disappointed, like if this was the result of earnest, sincere data collection and player evaluations, that like shame on you, Ronnie 2K, for not doing the trolling, not keeping the pot stirred between these two. If this was you actually trying to do your job, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, because I assume this is all done like months in advance or weeks in advance. But it's easy to fix. You can change it with the click of a button.
Exactly. I mean, this stuff is all online and virtual and whatever. Like, again, come on.
Yeah.
Please make this intentional. And Kendrick Nunn is a 78. From there, you got a bunch of guys all in the mid to low 70s.
Right. And it's the ability for the Lakers to make up that middle class. Like, can Lonnie Walker be a 79 instead of a 74? And like all this other, because that's where the Lakers are really struggling, is the depth on this. And we talked about it on Thursday's show. Like, the roster is so goofy right now, you don't even know what a guy like Walker is going to do. This is part of the reason, by the way, that I think the Westbrook for Hield and Turner deal is so much better, in part because let's say you could get 4 guys back from Utah. You start having to do that thing of like, okay, what combinations can we actually, it reminds me a lot of going into camp last year where it's like, look, the Lakers got 73 people who can all shoot, but only 5, it turned out none of them could, but only 5 of them can play at once, and trying to figure out how to use them made like half the group functionally useless. So if you can get 2 players that are easy to slot and easy to run, it's much better than having 4, even in some ways, if like the 4 is, like you get 4 useful players. In some ways, it's just, depending on who they are, it's more complicated.
You know what's interesting, though, and we'll talk about this when we come back, like the Lakers roster with the 2K ratings, just when you see it by itself, looks a little ominous. It looks a little bit like reason to be concerned. But then when you start breaking down their cumulative overall scores compared to the rest of the league, I actually found it pretty interesting and, dare I say, kind of optimistic.
There we go. Finding something anywhere we can.
Something that I did not expect. Again, you and I don't play these games, so we can talk about that coming up next. First of all, this was just delightful. When I was going through the Lakers ratings, I saw the computer renderings of various Lakers, and how this is Austin Reaves is beyond me. You've got this jet black hair, which is not Austin Reaves at all, with a 3-day shadow. I'm not even sure Austin Reaves is capable of growing facial hair. Like, they made Austin Reaves look like he's coming off a 3-day bender, or like he's a wheelman for a bank heist.
Right, and also Face Off. Like,
right,
doesn't look like him.
Well, he looks like, speaking of Face Off, he actually looks like the actor Thomas Jane from Face Off, Boogie Nights, the TV series Hung, or this is who he really looks like, Vlade Divac. Like, look at this. They turned Austin Reaves into Vlade.
Certainly, he looks more like Vlade than he does Austin Reaves.
Like, that is not Austin Reaves. I don't know who the hell that is. And I don't know how you land on that from Austin Reaves.
That ain't good.
Like, I mean, not to take this political, but it looks like Dark Austin, like the Dark Brandon meme. Like, I don't know who the hell that is, but it ain't Austin Reaves.
I hope Reaves uses that as fuel this season. They couldn't even find my photo to render me in the video game.
They turned me into somebody else.
They turned me into a 37-year-old Serbian. But sure, go for it.
Yeah, but what was his name? Milos, whatever, that point guard who was on the Clippers. It always looked like he had a cigarette dangling.
Oh, I love that guy.
I forgot.
He was
his
fun
last,
for like.
Yeah,
I forget. It was that. I'll look it up. You talk.
Milos, like Tedesevich or something. But anyway, so I was looking through the different categories for. Yes, thank you. I was looking for the different categories for 2K and how they come up with these scores, and it was interesting. First of all, the Lakers as a team for their tier. There's 3 total tiers. They were in the first tier, according to 2K, and they were ahead of the Cavaliers, the Wolves, the Pelicans, the Mavs, the Raptors, and the Bulls, which in and of itself, I did not expect. I thought that they would be considered a tier 2 team, but they are actually in the tier 1. Then you start looking at these other individual factors. Overall, which is the cumulative averages of their top 8 players, which is the way they go about determining all of these coming up next. 81, which was middle of the NBA pack, but tied with the Clippers, the Mavs, the Wolves, the Nuggets, and the Raptors. Inside scoring, 87, best in the league, which makes sense when you consider LeBron, AD, Russ, Kendrick Nunn can get to the rack. Lonnie Walker IV can get to the rack. Damian Jones is Jones automatic.
Only gets to the rack.
But he's automatic.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. Outside scoring, they were the 6th worst in the league. That requires no explanation. They do not have a true knockdown threat on the team. 6th worst again. Then 87 for athleticism. Number 1 in the league. LeBron.
Last year they were either an 8 or a 7. But they certainly weren't 87.
I think actually last year 2K didn't bother ranking them.
They just had a wheelchair and a walker. A little. They had a little handicap placard where the athleticism symbol would go.
They were not included. But you had, it makes sense. Again, LeBron, AD is very, very athletic for
their sound
position.
effect was wheezing.
Russ, even when you take into account the decline for him specifically that has hurt his game, he's still among the more athletic players in the league. Lonnie Walker, Damian Jones, Kendrick Nunn, Thomas Bryant as a young center, like Troy Brown, Austin Reaves, they're solid athletically. Defense, this was surprising. They were in the upper third, which feels like either them counting on AD having a bounce back defensive player of the year campaign, Darvin Ham refocusing, re-scheming them, like Troy Brown Jr., Austin Reaves, Damian Jones, JTA.
I appreciate all the optimism here. I'm starting to wonder if everybody in the 2K family spent as much time paying attention to the rest of the roster as they did Austin Reaves' face.
Well, I was going to say it's either them
because I'm not sure any of this makes sense.
Well, it's either that or they did the math wrong. It's right. One or the other.
Carry the one. It's too late to fix it.
Rebounding.
Way, Austin Reaves, Milos. Mm-hmm. Austin Reaves. Milos.
Yes.
He looks more like Milos than he does Austin Reaves.
It's, again, they did Austin wrong.
By the way, is a reason you should all be subscribing to the YouTube channel. You see all this stuff happening.
Exactly. Rebounding, they were a 55, which put them in the low end of the upper third. Intangibles, they were a middle of the pack team with a 79. And then potential, an 84, which put them in a multi-way tie for second with teams including Phoenix, the Clippers, Grizzlies, and the Nets. So what does all this mean? Absolutely nothing definitively, but what it does go to show, I think, again, the idea that 2K can see the possibilities for this team if LeBron and AD manage to stay healthy and Russ finds a way to fit in some way, and everybody else just plays to the top of their level. It was just interesting because I saw a lot of people freaking out at the individual player scores for the Lakers and it looked like doom and gloom. I was not expecting these cumulative results.
Perhaps, 2K, it's all computers, Andy. These people are very smart. They see the sum as better than the parts.
Either that or they know a lot of 2K players are Laker fans.
Right. And they want them to buy the game. Or, again, Austin Reaves.
I mean,
Milos.
What the hell is that?
It's not Austin Reaves. All right. So let's quit here because I want to read this. And again, we want to encourage people to participate in the show. Leave us comments on the Locked On Lakers YouTube page, all of that stuff. Because we'll use it. And so we got this based on the post Pat Bev Russ press conference thing, the day that Beverly was introduced. I think that was Tuesday this week. So I'm going to read this comment from David Holmes on the Locked On Lakers YouTube page. We can talk about it for a second here, but really what we want to get, and we'll get deeper into this next week and try to get more of your opinions. Maybe we'll put even a little poll out on something like this and see where people are. But here's the comment from David Holmes. I was a Westbrook basher before it became fashionable.
Congrats.
I never wanted to see him on the Lakers. When the trade rumors started last year, it was like a bad dream. He must have been one of the people who listened to that show we did about how terrible an idea it was. Second highest rated show we did all year after, oh my God, they did that. Mm-hmm. Yet now that Westbrook has become something of an underdog, I actually find myself pulling for him. Unlikely as it may be, it would be a great story of redemption if he actually did the stuff that Ham wants him to do, only in Hollywood, right? I'm expecting a box office bust, but we might get a surprise hit. What the heck? Unless you just enjoy being miserable, why not give it a chance? And what's interesting is on the page from Wednesday's show, there are a few comments that are kind of like this. Like, I find myself oddly pulling for Russ. Like, it's almost weirdly endearing how awkwardly he's sort of moving around the facility and trying to fit in and all this stuff. So we'll put it out there for people over the weekend and get into it next week. Is any part of you actually starting to pull for Russ, to feel sympathy, a little?
I was going to say, it's not just pull for him because you obviously want him to play well because it helps the team, but are you actually feeling bad for Russell Westbrook?
Do you feel bad? Like, are you starting to kind of have a little empathy, identify with him a little bit, find him a little more endearing, whatever it is? Have these last sort of, the efforts that he's made and the, quote, to use David's word, underdog status that he now finds himself in, has it changed your thoughts about him at all? That's right. He wears the cone of shame. I suspect a widely diverging set of opinions on this question, but we'll get into it next week.
Leave comments on the YouTube page.
Leave comments on the YouTube page. We'll maybe put out a poll or something over the weekend. We'll get into it next week. Andy is really on a tight clock here. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to go ahead and quit because this show and the processing of it has a real shelf life today. So, all right, everybody have a great weekend.